My name is Tim Dwyer, and I'm the president of the AMFT Board of Directors. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome you to number 4 of our 6-part home series. I know that for nearly everyone, this time at home stirs a wide mix of experiences and emotions. Words such as isolated and anxious, uncertain and fearful, worried and weary are just some I imagine we are hearing from clients and families with whom we Zoom now. And no doubt we can find ourselves sometimes feeling those things ourselves too. But I know we also hear and witness things like discovery, creativity, flexibility, determination, resiliency, and amazing adaptations. Over the past 3 weeks, you have welcomed AAMFT into your homes as we come together as a community to face this challenge. I am extremely proud of how MFTs and therapists across the globe have adapted their practices and taken an active role in providing solid, systemic, and relationally oriented care to those who are struggling in these difficult times. And I hope you will continue to join us in the next 2 weeks as we continue with our at-home series and host the terrific insights. Coming up is Dr. David Schnarch, and then following that, the week following, is Dr. Froma Walsh. Registration details can be found at amft.org/at-home. For those of you who are unable to join us at home, but are looking for excellent content to meet your continuing education requirements, I can encourage you to visit Tenio, AMFT's online on-demand learning platform. From there, you can access some of the best systemic training available on a wide variety of topics suited to your professional interests. Tenio can be accessed from our homepage at amft.org. I also encourage you to visit our coronavirus update page at amft.org/coronavirus for up-to-date news and a variety of resources. For our AAMFT members, keep your eye on the Family Therapy e-news as we will launch even more systemic resources and virtual events to keep you connected during these times. Today's session is being sponsored by CPH & Associates. As the endorsed professional liability insurance provider for AAMFT members, CPH & Associates is proud to sponsor the AAMFT at-home series. CPH provides you portable occurrence form coverage that protects you throughout your professional career. During this time of evolving practices, CPH is pleased to assure you that their policy covers telehealth services, so long as such services are permitted under your state's law. A policy with CPH provides you peace of mind so you can focus on your career. Get policy highlights and an instant quote online at www.cphins.com. Now, without further ado, it is my sincere pleasure to introduce to you today's presenter, Dr. Sue Johnson. Dr. Johnson is a clinical psychologist, researcher, professor, author, popular presenter and speaker, and one of the leading innovators in the field of couple therapy. She presents and writes on attachment and bonding, the science of love, interventions to repair relationships, help couples heal from trauma, and find forgiveness. Dr. Johnson holds professorships at the University of Ottawa in Canada and Alliant University in San Diego, California. She is one of the originators and the main proponent of the emotionally focused couple therapy, a powerful time-tested treatment model to help couples repair rifts and build stronger loving bonds. She is also the director of the Ottawa Couple and Family Institute and the International Center for Excellence in Emotionally Focused Therapy, which has numerous affiliated centers and communities in North America and Europe. Dr. Johnson is a longtime member of AMFT and in 2000 was awarded our Outstanding Contribution in Marriage and Family Therapy Award. Please welcome Dr. Sue Johnson.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here with you at this rather strange time. This series is called At Home, and I'm welcoming you to my home. I'm on the west coast of Canada, kind of north of Seattle, on Vancouver Island. And on my little island, we have been very lucky to have, we've faced this epidemic, but it has been relatively mild for us. although we have done all kinds of the same lockdown things and obeying all the same rules as all of you, going through all the same stress. But in Canada, I want you to know that we really feel for our American colleagues, particularly those in places like New York, where I have many colleagues. This is a difficult time. And it's a difficult time that I think has highlighted very, very, very powerfully our need for relationships. It's highlighted the fact that, in truth, when we really, really slow down and look at our world, it is true that our lives are always in the hands of others. That trust in others and the feeling that others will respond to us is kind of the basic to our sense of a safe society and our safety in the world. So it seems to me that relationships and the quality of our relationships are an incredibly important topic right now. What I hope from this epidemic is that it is a huge wake-up call for the fact that our relationships are essential to us. They're necessary, and we need to educate for them and grow them and show people how to heal them, and not kind of put them on the shelf and just turn back to our incredibly busy, distracted lives and act like our relationships are an incidental. But I'm speaking to the choir here because you all know how important relationships are. And the thing about my work is I always feel optimistic in that what I talk about is that in the last 20 years, we have developed a very clear science of adult love and bonding, a science that is broad and rich with thousands of studies and gives us at last a map to our intimate relationships, to why we need them so much, what the drama of love is all about, how they go wrong, and in a very practical sense, how to put them right. And emotionally focused therapy, or extremely funny therapy, as my son calls it, is really based on this science of attachment. It's based on this map to relationships, to our inner longing for connection, our sense of vulnerability, and the fact that there's only so many ways of dealing with that vulnerability. Some of those ways take us into isolation. Some of those ways take us into reaching for others and connecting and being stronger in our lives. So we have learned so much from using this new science of love and bonding in our work in the last 20 years. And I think that's the reason why emotionally focused therapy is the gold standard for a tested approach to couples therapy. Right now, I feel very proud of saying that to you. We are very team orientated in EFT, and I have the most wonderful group of colleagues. At the moment, there's 20 positive outcome studies on EFT, and I think we're the only approach to couples therapy that has shown that our results last, that you can test our couples 3 years down the road, and they're still happy together, their bond is still more secure, they still have that trust for each other, they still feel close and satisfied. That's great, right? This approach really, really emphasizes all the stuff we're seeing in the media right now about how isolation, emotional isolation, you can be living alone and still have a deep sense of connection with others and know that you matter to others. But emotional isolation is traumatizing for human beings. And I think this is particularly relevant right now. It seems to me in the present situation, well, I was thinking about giving this talk yesterday, and I'll give you two images that came up for me. At the moment where I live, there's fields and fields of blue camas, right? They're huge blue purple flowers, and they grow all over the rocks by the sea. And I took my dog and I walked through the park, and there were couples and families everywhere, you know, on a Thursday morning when everyone would normally be at work. And these people are sitting on blankets and they're having, you know, meals, and they're talking to each other. And I thought, this is what people do in threat and uncertainty and danger, they turn towards each other and they reach for each other, and they find what the research says is safe haven. They find protection from their anxiety. They find reassurance, right, in just the connection with other people. This is wonderful. This is what's happening. You know, people are spending time with loved ones. People are Zooming each other. People are FaceTiming each other. We know we naturally turn to others as a source of security. That's just who we are. We're bonding mammals. And that's the most natural way and the most efficient way for us to deal with our anxiety, is to turn to others. So that's happening. On the other hand, I stand on my deck as the dusk is coming over the huge pine trees, and I listen to my neighbors fighting. And I realize this is the other side. The other side is when we are threatened and stressed and faced with uncertainty, naturally our need for others, our attachment vulnerabilities come up, our anxieties come up, our need for others is front and center. And if we find that the answer to the million-dollar question in relationships, which is, are you there for me? Do I matter to you? Do you see me? Can you see my pain? Will you respond to my pain? Will you come when I call? This is the million-dollar question in relationships. And for many people, unfortunately, in this crisis, their need for connection is going to become more poignant, more pressing, more front and center. And if they cannot reach for their partner safely, if their partner does not respond to them, if they feel emotionally alone, then their anxiety is going to go up, and their perception of the relationship as not a safe haven is going to start to plummet. Those people are not only going to get more distressed in their relationship and see their partner as more negatively, they're probably going to get more distressed and more anxious, because we know that secure attachment with another human being really, really creates resilience. It creates a sense of competence and worth in us so that we can feel stronger and go out and face the world. We know that, right? And we know the other side of that, which is that when you face stress and danger alone, right, that is exceedingly difficult for you. I'm not talking about I'm not talking touchy-feely here. I'm talking about science. Okay, we know, for example, from Kelcott Glass's work in Ohio, that if you put wounds on couples' hands and then ask them to interact, the couples who fight, who send negative messages to each other, who get into conflict, who cannot share and confide and feel close and reassure each other or repair rifts, those couples who fight and they have those wounds on their hands take longer to heal. We know that our connection with others is a biological variable. Our connection, we need relationships like fish need water, fish need the sea. Relationships, bonded relationships, not just our general social relationships, are the sea we swim in. They're our ecological niche, and we need this. And we know that your interactions with the people you love impact your immune system. They impact the cortisol going through your body, the stress hormones. They impact the level of inflammation. And of course, they impact our sense of mental resilience. They impact our sense that we are not alone. We are not wired to deal with huge threats. We're not wired to face dragons alone. So all this science from the last 20 years tells us that this is a time when therapists who deal with relationships are amazingly important. We may not be in the ICU putting people on ventilators, but we are amazingly important right now. And people need us. People need us to support them to find some kind of comfort and caring in relationships that were not particularly safe before this whole thing started, and where people cannot find each other. From an EFT and attachment point of view, the essence of relationship distress is not conflict per se. We've been obsessed with conflict, but all couples have conflict. All people have differences. What I say is everyone is basically incompatible, right? All people have differences. That is not the issue. For us in EFT and from an attachment point of view, we understand very clearly, and I'm going to use a very powerful metaphor right now, that conflict is the inflammation. The virus is emotional disconnection. The virus is feeling that you are alone, you are abandoned and rejected in a relationship, and therefore the other person doesn't hear your vulnerability, won't respond to your vulnerability, and you're basically, you're in a very impossible situation for a bonding mammal. You're in a situation where you expect closeness because you're in a relationship, and all your needs for closeness are primed, even when there isn't a big threat coming from outside, and where your ability to create that closeness is not there. So it's kind of a people, that very much disorganizes people. And these powerful emotions and these powerful needs, they're stronger than just our prefrontal cortex. If you think about some of the things we've learned from couples over the years, you know, look at some of the places we get stuck in relationships. People can have quite a lot of awareness and quite a lot of cognitive skills, and they still get caught in this attachment drama. They get overwhelmed, they become, their responses become disorganized, they become reactive, or they numb out, and they get caught in dreadful patterns with the people they love the most, patterns where instead of feeling connected and safe and supported, they end up feeling alone and isolated. And as we talk a little bit about some of my couples and what we do in EFT to help couples, I invite you to think about your own relationships. If you don't know my work at all, the easiest way into my work is to read the book I wrote for the public 10 years ago, which is still selling very well, I'm happy to say, called Hold Me Tight, which talks about the hold me tight conversations that we help couples have in our therapy that predicts success at the end of therapy and predicts positive follow-up 3 years later. So you can read Hold Me Tight and look at all the couples in there. But I invite you to think about your own relationships. As a couples therapist, it's kind of humbling to have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience, and to meet your English mother coming to visit you off the plane, and she comes down the escalator, and for the first few minutes you think, oh, we're going to have the most wonderful time, we're going to bond, we're going to feel close, we're going to confide, and you smile at each other, and your mother picks up her case, and she turns and she looks at you and she says, what have you done to your hair? And my God, you put on weight and that color doesn't suit you. And boom. For the next 2 weeks, in spite of all your cognitive skills, you are off balance emotionally, you are floundering, and you are caught in the usual fight that you've had with your mother since you were about 6 years old, which is she pushes and criticizes and pokes and tries to control you from your point of view. And then what you do is you do what we see our clients do. You shut down, you shut her out, which of course makes her more frantic and makes her want to connect, push with you more. You shut down, and then when you really can't stand it anymore, you turn and you attack her. And then everything stops for a bit, and then you start again. So couples are caught in these negative patterns. And, when the more their anxiety goes up and the more the threat from the outside comes in, the more vulnerable they feel. And unfortunately, the more powerful these negative patterns can be. So what do we do in EFT? Well, EFT is based on the fact that we believe that to change a relationship is a dance. To change a relationship, you have to change the emotional music. There is no other way. There is no other way to change a dance. If you think about it, emotions organize your inner world, what you're listening to, what you orientate to, how you create meaning. Emotions move you to action. Emotions organize your inner world, and they organize the way you dance with others and how someone responds to you. They're the music of the dance with others. If you want to change a dance, change the music, it changes the whole system, the whole relationship system. Very hard to teach people tango if you're playing waltz music. Very hard. It really doesn't work. So we focus on emotion, and we focus on emotion to help people regulate their emotion differently, get their balance so they can see the dance they're in, see their partner, but they're not all caught in the narrow image that their fears and their isolation create for them, right? Their vision expands. We help them see the dance they're caught in, understand that it's an attachment bond, understand that adult love is not a strange mixture of sex and sentiment. Adult love is an ancient, wired-in survival code designed to keep those that we depend on are close to us, close to us. And when I say that, you can see that that's particularly relevant in a pandemic, right? That's particularly relevant in moments of threat, right? So it's a survival code. So what we believe then is that our need for connection, as human beings, our need for connection has over millions of years of evolution, has shaped our neural architecture. It's shaped our responses to stress. It's shaped the way we put our inner emotional life together, and it shapes the way we turn and engage with others. So it's called emotionally focused, right? And we have an attachment frame. EFT is a non-pathologizing approach. So we believe that basically our attachment needs are functional. Of course, they can go wrong. Everything that human beings do and think can get distorted. But basically, we take an attachment frame, we put our attachment glasses on, and we see everything in the light of this science of relationships. We see people's deep longing and need, which turns into desperation if people are really threatened in their relationship and outside. We see people's deep longing for connection, and we see that as basically healthy. And then we look at how that longing for connection becomes blocked, how it doesn't always turn into a natural process where we reach for others. When we feel vulnerable, we reach for others. We say what we need. We share what's happening with us. When the other responds to us, our nervous system calms down. We feel balanced. We get our emotional balance. We feel more resilient. We feel stronger, right? What attachment basically tells us is we all need safe haven relationships. And when we have those safe haven relationships, we have a secure base to go out into the world and face challenge. The closer we are, the stronger we are. This is very different from some of the things that were taught in our profession many years ago, where we were taught that basically strength was not depending on others and having very firm boundaries with others, and that somehow, you know, there was something called enmeshment, and there was something called codependency. We have all these negative names for what we think of as too much dependency or too much closeness. Attachment people basically see that as a highly anxious attachment. And if you see it that way, we can take those couples into couples therapy and we can help them heal. And the point about that one is that when you help people move into more secure bond, they don't just change their relationship positively, they both help each other grow into stronger, more resilient people. So if you know that others have your back and you trust others, you're basically more secure, you're less vigilant for danger, you feel stronger. So I was trying to think of a couple that epitomize this, and what I thought about was our program right now. There's relationship education programs based on Hold Me Tight on the book. And we have one for cardiac couples called Healing Hearts Together. We developed it with the big hospital in the capital of Canada in Ottawa. And I saw a couple to, as part of that program, You know, I made a video of working with a couple as part of that program called Sam and Mary. Sam was 60 years old. He was a very sort of tough customer. He was a construction boss who worked in the forests in Canada and who didn't know what you were talking about when you talked about closeness. He'd been married to his wife since they were 19. They'd split up a number of times, and things had gone pretty wrong for them over the years, but they were still together. And then at 59, Sam had a massive heart attack, and he woke up in the hospital with a new heart in his chest. Right? So this is enormous for Sam. And what was as enormous, literally, if we're thinking about the image of a heart as having a new heart and having to adapt to that, was Sam suddenly realized he was vulnerable. And he suddenly realized how much he needed Mary, and he needed her literally to hold his hand. He needed her to be in close contact. And that was very interesting, because when he comes out of the hospital, they have to adapt. They have to become a team around this. They have to deal with Sam's new vulnerability. They have to deal with a new kind of relationship, and things start to go very badly. So let's look at Sam and what goes wrong in relationships. Basically, we know that the most disastrous pattern that leaves us alone and moves us into what we call attachment panic and leaves us alone, the most disastrous and most regular pattern people get into is that one person feels disconnected and gets anxious and pushes for contact, but that push becomes literally pushy. It sounds critical. It becomes demanding. The other person feels rejected or confronted, and they shut down. The more they shut down, the more anxious the other person gets, the more they push. So Sam and Mary would get into, she'd say to him at dinner time, do you know what, I think that's too much wine. The doctor told you not to drink too much wine. There's too much wine in that glass. She's anxious. She's terrified he's going to have another heart attack, right? She doesn't say that. She says, there's too much wine in that glass, okay? If she'd had her emotional balance, she might have said, I get really scared sometimes when I look at you drinking wine. I get scared because I'm so scared that somehow if we don't obey all these rules, that maybe you'll have another heart attack, and that so scares me. She doesn't say that. She says, there's too much wine in that glass. And he says, is this what you're going to do for the rest of my life? You're going to remind me all the time how sick I am, how I'm not a man anymore. You know, I can't even get an erection anymore some of the time, and I'm just a sickie. Is that what you're going to do? You're going to remind me my whole life how sick I am. She throws up her hands. He walks out. And this links to our physical health. He walks out into the rural roads of Quebec in Canada at night without his cell phone, without his nitroglycerin, without his pills. He forgets to take his meds. His heart is pumping like mad. His heart rate is probably through the roof. He's stressed out of his mind. He drives all night around the rural roads of Quebec. This is exceedingly dangerous. He comes back in the morning to the house. He forgets his doctor's appointment. He does not do his exercises. He does not take his meds. Yeah, right. So they come in and they talk about that. That's their negative cycle. So what we do in EFT and what Hold Me Tight encourages you to do in your relationships is look at the negative dance you get caught in when somehow you're not emotionally balanced enough to reach and show someone your vulnerability and ask them to respond. The negative conflict we get caught in where we're pushing or we're shutting down and shutting out, and everybody is suddenly isolated and feeling rejected, and our anxiety gets worse, our sense of connection with the other person gets worse. The whole thing goes down the rabbit hole. And I invite you to think about your negative patterns in your relationship. We all have them. I've been married for 30 years. I certainly have a negative pattern. And you can probably tell from my personality that in our dance, I'm the pursuer. I'm the person who recognizes that, hey, we've been so busy with this COVID crisis that we haven't actually had time for a real conversation in days. So I'm the person, and sometimes I say it in ways that aren't easy to respond to. I say, you know what? We're not really talking to each other. Listen to my voice. Right? So I pursue and demand. And my husband says, what are you talking about? I talked to you yesterday. I talked to you yesterday. We had that conversation. I said, no, that wasn't a real conversation. I don't know what you mean. That was not a real conversation. And we're off. You know where this goes. You're couples therapists, right? So what we do is in our Hold Me Tight education programs and in our therapy is we accept people's attachment needs and longings. We see everything in the light of our need for safe haven with others, right? We help reflect that acceptance. We say to people, of course you're alone, of course you are, and that hurts us all, because we're bonding human beings. That's just who we are, right? You're a fish, you swim in the sea. That's a biological variable. You don't get to choose that. It's a biological variable. So we put our attachment lens in, we talk in attachment terms, we help people see the dance they're caught in. And Sam begins to call it the spin. He says, we're caught in the spin. Because what I hear is that she's telling me that you're sick and I'm scared. And all through my life, all I've ever done when I felt vulnerable is shut down. And now when I shut down, I'm alone and I'm even more scared. It's not working anymore, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So they start to talk about their cycle. They start to see how it leaves them alone. And in EFT, we blame the cycle, not the people. We say, yes, you're caught in this dreadful dance and it takes you over. We call it the Demon Dialog in Hold Me Tight, because it is like a demon. It comes in, the emotional music, goes off. We're off balance. It comes in and takes you over. Yeah. And this happens in all relationships. The difference between a securely attached relationship and a secure bond and an insecure bond is that you can come back into balance. You can say, wait a minute, what happened here? This is a natural process. And I think the reason why EFT gets the results it does is not because we've created a clever structure or way of seeing relationships, because we tune into a natural biological process. So we're on target and we're kind of organic, we tune into it. So this naturally happens. People disconnect, they feel anxious and disconnected, they push, they don't tune into the other person, they don't tune into their emotions, they push, they go into misattunement and alienation. And then if they're securely attached, or if an EFT therapist shows them how to do it, they can turn around and say, wait a minute. They can change level and look from a meta perspective and say, wait a minute, what's happening here? You're my precious one. I'm acting like you're the enemy. You're not the enemy. You're scared like me. We've talked about that in Sue's office. Wait a minute, we're caught in that spin thing. And Sam can start to say, we're caught in that spin thing, and I don't know what to do now. And when he turns to Mary and says, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. I hear that you're telling me that I'm failing. Maybe you think because I drink wine now, maybe you think it was all my fault I had a heart attack. So I don't know what to do. When he says, I don't know what to do, he's a fix-it guy, right? And the world is full of men who've been taught to fix things and problem solve, trying to problem solve their way out of an emotional problem. They don't need to fix it or to give a solution. They just need to be present. Emotional presence is the solution in bonding situations. So when he turns to his wife and he says, I don't know what to do. I get anxious when you say that to me. I'm overwhelmed. I want my wine. I feel sad that I can't just live my life the way it used to be in the past. I'm scared, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know what to say to you. He's amazed that Mary turns towards him softly and says, I know, Sam, I'm scared too, and I don't know what to do all the time. And I just get scared when you drink a lot of wine because you're my precious one. And I don't want you to have another heart attack, and I'm scared. And then the couple hold each other, and Sam's heart rate goes down, and his immune system kicks in, and his cortisol level goes down, and his immune system can work better. And Sam feels stronger and more worthy and more able to deal with his heart problems. So the first thing we do in the first stage of EFT to create stability is we de-escalate these negative dances that keep people away from being able to bond safely. We create emotional balance. And I invite you to think about your relationship and how you do that. And if you get stuck in a pattern with your loved one and you can't do that, what gets in the way? And we all get stuck in them. We all get stuck, right? I invite you to think about it. And, you know, I can think about when my son was growing up and he was an adolescent, we got caught in a very negative cycle where I was always giving him advice. And again, it was humbling that it was my son at 17 who learned to turn and say, Mom, we're in that thing again. We're in that thing where you give me advice and all I hear is that you think I'm a bad kid. So then, Mom, you know what? The conversation doesn't go too well. And I would say, you're right, Tim, you're right. And I'd switch into what we teach couples to do in the second stage of EFT, where we restructure the attachment, right? What do we teach couples to do? We teach couples then, now they've got some balance and some safety and security in the relationship, we teach them to be able to turn towards each other and create positive, constructive dependency, to be able to turn and get their emotional balance, accept the emotions they're feeling, accept what's going on inside them, and confide in the other person in their fears and their needs in a way that pulls the other person towards them. And we call this a hold me tight conversation. And Sam starts to talk about in the hold me tight conversation about how he hasn't just got a new heart in his chest, he feels like he's lost himself. He doesn't know who Sam is. Sam was a tough guy. Sam was the big construction boss. Sam never felt weak or vulnerable. Sam never needed anybody. And suddenly, the first thing Sam remembers when he wakes up in the morning is lying in this hospital bed with tubes coming into him all over the place. And the only thing that kept him grounded from spinning off into space was looking up into Mary's face and feeling her holding his hand. And on some level, that scares the hell out of Sam. So Sam talks about that. Mary starts talking about how she feels massively responsible for keeping him having another heart attack. And she also starts to tell him that in a way, he's showing up with her now in a way that he's never shown up before. And she wants this new Sam. She wants this emotional presence. This is what she's always been longing for. And Sam and Mary start to bond and have hold me tight conversations. So that's stage 2. The point about these hold me tight conversations is I want you to get that they're if you like, they're sort of primal scenes. Your mammalian brain holds onto them. They have survival significance. You don't forget them. This is why I think we get good follow-up, okay? These kinds of events, we remember these moments with the people we love. We remember them all our life. We remember them when we're dying. You know, these scenes, our nervous system holds on. They're like biologically prepared learning. These are the things we remember. So when Sam and Mary find each other in this way in a hold me tight conversation, you know, their sense of accepting their own inner reality and their fears and needs expands. Their sense of being able to deal with the heart attack and with threat expands. And they know that they can turn towards each other, and that when they find each other disconnected and the other looks like the enemy, that they can turn and heal their relationship. So this is kind of the way, this is the way EFT works. And I invite you to look at your couples this way. I invite you to think about all kinds of couples from this point of view, from the point of view of how people deal with their vulnerability. If you can't deal with it with the help of someone else, then you're stuck dealing with it alone. This is true even in individual therapy. We do EFIT, the book that I wrote last year, Attachment Theory in Practice, right, talks about the fact that we are known as a couples therapy, but in fact, we're an attachment-orientated, experiential, humanistic therapy. And it doesn't really matter who's in the room. You can still work with an individual, a couple, or a family with this model from an attachment point of view. If you're working with an individual, and sometimes when we work with couples, we have individual sessions. If you're working with an individual, then, you know, what I ask somebody to do is close their eyes and see their main attachment figure and talk to that main attachment figure and talk about the negative cycle they get caught in with that figure and what happens to them. And then maybe talk about, you know, what would they like to say to that attachment figure? What do they need from that attachment figure? You can still create these powerful new interactions, whether you've got an individual in the room. And by the way, I forget to say it all the time. If you want to look for our EFT trainings or training tapes on EFIT and on emotionally focused couples therapy, you go to our website, www.iceeft.com, ICEFT, and you'll see training tapes you can look at. You'll see events. They're all online now. I'm starting to burn out from looking at this tiny little black dot. I have to imagine you all. I imagine you laughing at my jokes or, you know, listening to me with interest. Well, I don't see how you get up and make coffee or, you know, how you pet your dog, which is just as well. But I imagine you. So you can go on the ICEFT website and you can look at training events online. And by the way, I think that's also something that I need to say here about the fact that we can work online, and maybe I'll talk about that in just a second because it's very important. But you can go and look at our training events. You can look at books and articles. There's lists of articles. Most of our chapters have transcripts in them. You can look at the books came out last year. Last year, a third edition of the Basic Practice of Emotionally Focused Couples Therapy came out. A family book came out with Jim Farrow on EFT for families, and my book, Attachment Theory in Practice, came out basically saying that EFT goes across modalities. What I basically say in that book is that the attachment science gives psychotherapy, period, a scientific base and a way of understanding human beings as relational beings in a way that is new and has never happened before, and that as psychotherapists we need to grab this science, make it our own, because it really allows us to integrate the field of psychotherapy and the modalities of therapy in a new way. So one of the questions that people ask me a lot these days is, okay, you focus on people's emotions, you know, you do something, what do? You do something called the Eft Tango all the time, in all the sessions, in different pacing and in different ways you do the tango. You focus on the process of what's happening, right, between people and within people, how they're putting their emotions together and how they're interacting with their partners. You focus on that and you reflect it in a safe way. So you say, and you tell yourself, Sam, I'm not going to feel these things. It's better to be numb. I don't want to feel these things. If I feel these things, it means I'm weak. And you shut down and you shut Mary out. And then Mary, you get upset, and the more he shuts you out, the more you push and the angrier you get. Is that what happens, right? So you reflect the process, then you change level and you go for the emotional music and you help people assemble their emotions. And we really know how to do that. We can teach you how to do that. You go for the trigger, you go for their basic perception, what happens in their body, the meaning they make, and the action that they want to do. These are the basic variables that make up an emotional response. And we help people access those variables and put them together in a new way, right? That we expand people's emotion. Then we take the new emotion, and in move 3 of the tango, we take it out into an interpersonal drama, because that's where we live. We're interpersonal, social, bonding mammals. So we take it out into an interpersonal drama with an imagined attachment figure, close your eyes and talk to your mother, right? Or close your eyes and talk to the small, vulnerable little part of yourself that you see who is 5 years old and feeling all alone, or to your partner in couples therapy, or to your partner in family therapy, or to your child in family therapy. And we create those new interactions. And then we get people to reflect on them. That was a new kind of interaction. What happened there? If you say that you've never let anyone in, you don't believe in letting people in, you just turned and gave your heart to your partner, didn't you? You told her, I get afraid. I'm afraid you're going to leave me. I've never really known if I mattered to you. Oh, that was an amazing risk. What happens to you? The fascinating thing is that when you go and help people process these new interactions, even though they're risky, people say, 9 times out of 10, people say, it feels good. It feels good. I didn't even have the words for it before, but it feels good to say that because it's true. And they're grounded in their own body and in their emotions, and they say who they are to their partner. And I say, what was it like for you to hear it? And the other person says, it's amazing. I didn't know you felt that way. If those interactions go wrong, and of course they will, we tell you how to deal with that. We tell you how to do things like catch the bullet, right? And the last thing we do in the EFT Tango is we validate people. We validate people constantly. And we tell them, you don't have to wait 5 sessions for change. Look at what you did right here. Look at how you were different with each other. Look at how you put your emotions together differently. You did it right here. Look at what you did. This is amazing. What you're telling people, you can understand your emotions, they make sense. You can understand your relationship, it makes sense. We know how to help you here. You can make sense of this. You can learn to reach for your partner. You can learn to put your emotions together with balance. You are worthy and competent. You are worthy and competent, and you are able to deal with the essence of all mental health and emotional problems that John Bowlby, the father of attachment theory, talked about. He said, in the end, it's all about dealing with frightening, alien, and unacceptable emotions. And what you do in EFT is you give people corrective emotional experiences, small ones in the beginning and bigger ones looking like hold me tight conversations in the second stage of therapy, corrective emotional experiences where they can get their emotional balance, they can feel competent to deal with their inner world, they can feel competent in their relationship, and they feel worthy. The therapist tells them, hey, you're just one of us. We're all turkeys in the same turkey soup here. We all feel this way. We all have the same fears and vulnerabilities. And that actually, what I just said, reminds me, we validate people. If you want to read something very fascinating, there's a new book out by the 19th Surgeon General of the United States, a man, what's his name? He's called Murthy, M-U-R-T-H-Y, and it's just called Together. And he's talking about all the new science that talks about how we need each other. It fits beautifully with attachment. I invite you to read it. It's called Together. So, and we believe what he's saying. We've believed it for years. And so we validate people for the changes they can make. If you're a Rogerian humanistic therapist, and this fits very well with Bowlby and with attachment, it's your job to believe that people can grow. And it's your job to find the order in their experience and to put your faith in them and to meet them where they are, which is often they feel completely stuck or they don't even know if they want to grow, and to validate they have good reasons for being there and gradually to lead them forward. But what you need to do that is you need a map. You need a map. You need a map for understanding people, and you need a map for how to take people forward. So I feel like in the last 30 years and all the studies we've done, that's kind of what we've developed in EFT. And you know, what that results in for me is I still feel intoxicated with doing therapy. After all these years, I'm still excited. I still learn things from my clients. I'm still fascinated. And that's how I feel we need to be in this field. We need to develop models where we're still intoxicated after 30 years and we're still growing as therapists. So I want to go back. I'm aware that my time's running out. This is very short. A very quick ride through attachment EFT, right? At a time of stress and trouble. But I just want to say something about online. You know, there's lots of stuff out in the media. I read a New York article yesterday, I think it was yesterday, talking about how Zoom is terrible and how you miss all the nonverbals, or talking about how doing online therapy, what was the image? Doing online therapy was like doing therapy with a condom on, which I thought was rather a strange image, but never mind. So I want to tell you that that is not our experience in EFT. That's not my experience. And I was very negative when I started doing online therapy about 18 months ago. I was very negative about it. It was an experiment for me. And I learned a lot. And our overwhelming experience as an EFT community, and we have 70 affiliated centers affiliated with ISEFT all over the world. We have people in all kinds of cultures, Iran, Egypt, you know, Australia, Finland, the US. We have therapists all over and people all over. And the feedback I'm getting uniformly is, yes, you can do EFT online. You can do effective EFT online. I think that is because we focus on presence. You know, what attachment says is the variables that define the quality of engagement, safe, open engagement with others, are ARE. The big question in attachment relationships is, are you there for me? ARE. And attachment science says, in a good relationship, positive bond, you're emotionally accessible, responsive, and engaged. Accessible, responsive, and engaged. ARE. So you show up emotionally, you're present, and you have a very particular kind of alliance, right? So I think that works well online. You know, I show up online as Sue, not as Dr. Johnson. I show up as another human being who struggles with what you're struggling with. You know, I show up as somebody who has attachment needs and fears just like you, and who gets stuck just like you. So we know how to create that presence, and we know how to go in and work with emotion. And emotion goes through a screen. Hey, if that wasn't true, Hollywood would be broke. We know how to get emotional engagement from people. We know how to ask evocative questions. We know how to ask them in a way that pulls people into engagement. We talk a lot in EFT about using an acronym called RISK, especially when you're asking people to take a risk and do something new. RISK, what do? It's the way you invite people into their experience that matters. You reflect and you repeat. You reflect and repeat so that people can start to, their amygdala can start to listen to a new incoming, rather threatening piece of information and actually start to think about listening to it. You reflect and repeat, R. You use images because images grab people, they keep people focused. You don't say, you get rather upset. You say, could you help me? This is one of these moments when you're falling through space, right? You use your presence. You get specific about the emotion. We can deal with things that are specific. We can't deal with big, huge things. So when couple tell you about a fight, you go into the moment that was really painful. You don't try to deal with all the content in the fight. You'll be there for a week. Could you help me please? You use the word despair. Could you tell me the moment when you feel that despair? What's happening for you? You get specific. You use simple words. Your voice goes soft and slow. If you're going to work with emotion, you got to go slow. Emotion is not irrational. It is not. What it is it's fast. It's supposed to be fast. It's supposed to save your life. But that becomes a problem. So if you want to work with it and unpack it and start to shift emotional music that somebody's listening to and that they're playing, they are directing their steps with their partner, you have to slow it down. And then you use C, the client's words. We pick up people's emotional handles, the thing they use all the time. I'm working with an eating disordered young woman in EFIT, in individual therapy right now. And surprise, surprise, she uses the image of starvation for her relationships with other people and how she's numbed out with other people. She either plans everything or she numbs out. Very, very interesting, because of course that's exactly what she does with food too. So, we know how to show up online in a way that pulls people in and engages them. And we know where we are, we know the structure, we know what we're doing. We have a map to people's inner world. So we know where to go and we know how to lead them into change. And it seems to me if you do this, you can deal with things like, suddenly everyone freezes and you have to say, where were we? Could you help me? And I go for the emotion. I think you turned to her and you said, right? You can deal with the little glitches that technology gives you. You can deal with the fact that you're flat, right? And you can still engage with people. So I think I'm running out of time here. I'm very happy to talk to you all. I think this whole crisis, we have a huge amount to give. And I think when the one epidemic stops, we're going to have another epidemic, which is dealing with the fallout from all this in terms of people's mental health and their relationships. So I think we're going to be frontline workers for a while. And I hope in that work, that incredibly important work, you'll find this talk useful and my work useful. And of course, I forgot to tell you, we've also put the Hold Me Tight educational program online. You can give it to your clients. You can even do it yourself. You can go to www.holdmetightonline.com. holdmetightonline.com. And I think it's a 12-hour program. It's fun, it's neat, it's got cartoons, it's got music, it's got exercises, and people can do it online with their partner. So I'm very glad we did that. It was, it was a good thing to do. We did it a couple of years ago, but it was, I think it was a good thing to do for people. And lots of people are doing it right now because, of course, relationship distress is going up. Because when we realize how much we need people and we can't find them, that's very, very difficult for us. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you all. I hope you found it useful. Please stay safe. If you can also go to my website, drsuejohnson.com, and see me giving little talks if this has been overwhelming for you. I wish you all the best. And I hope to see you in person at a conference or a training or something soon when this is all finished. So take care and stay safe. It's been nice to talk to you. Thank you for listening.